Using watercolors doesn't have to be expensive or intimidating or complicated. They can be really simple. And in this quick video, I'm going to show you my really simple setup for taking outdoors in the field and a few ways to mix your colors. So, whether you want to do landscapes or flowers or birds, you can paint whatever your heart desires with a really simple setup. So, in case we haven't met before, hi, I'm Christine. I'm a naturalist, environmental educator, and visual artist in Southern Oregon. So I love to share my love of nature with people and get them out sketching and journaling and painting in the field. So let's get started. All right, here's the simple setup I'm using. Just using some watercolor paper. And in this case, I'm using this Strathmore. It really helps to have some good quality watercolor paper. I'm just using this simple set of 6 colors, and we've just got a cool yellow, a cool red, and a cool blue. And to make things faster to paint in the field, I also have a green and a warm brown and a gray. And with just these 6 colors, you can make an amazing variety of just about anything you can see in nature. Then I'm using a brush, and the size of your brush will kind of depend on the size of your paper. You could use a bigger brush if you want, just depends. And I'm just going to be starting right in without a pencil. You could have a pencil though. And sometimes I also like to have a pen. And these white opaque pens are fun for adding things like stars. And then speaking of brushes, a lot of people who paint in the field use a water brush. It's already filled with water. So I'm not going to be using that. I'm using what you might likely have, which is a brush and then a fresh container of water. Now, if you're in the field, one thing you can do is you can use one of those little dog bowls, those little collapsible bowls that they use to give dogs water when you're out on a hike. Those work great for watercoloring in the field. And then I have just a piece of paper towel, although a lot of folks who paint in the field, including me, will use a little piece of cut off sock that they'll put on their hand, and that can help them to dry their brush and clean it. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly show you a few ways of mixing paints that are super easy to do. And first, I'm just going to show you what we have in our palette. And so we have this green, and often I just like to dry my brush here so I don't get the water dirty. And then this beautiful warm brown and this gray. And then this yellow, a cool yellow. And this cool red. And this blue. Now, especially this blue is very strong. So make sure you dry your brush here first. And so a couple ways you can apply the paint. One is what we call a flat wash. And I should just add that here. A flat wash versus a graded wash. I can't spell. So a flat wash would be just kind of like we've done here. Just putting it on there. And the less you play with the paint, the better. So I like to just do one pass. And then a graded wash is when you put some paint on, and then you can clean your brush and dry it, and then just pull that down, and it can make a gradation, which is nice for doing things that are receding, like a green meadow going into the background or a sky. Another thing you can do is what we call a wet in wet technique. Wet in wet. And that's where, and you can do this with any colors, but I'll just use this beautiful, cool. And then we're going to do wet and dry as well. So I'm going to let this dry here for a moment. And so that's going to be a wet in dry. Okay. And so what you do is you put a second color in while this one is still wet. And the amount of time you wait has a lot to do with how that will look. So the sooner you go in there with the second color, the more fuzzy and blended the two colors will be. So if I just pop in some of this purplish blue without messing with it too much. Again, the less you mess with watercolors, the less they will lift. And then this, I'll put some blue on when this dries in a moment. And you can tell when something is dry by when you touch it, it's not cold. And of course, it doesn't get on your finger. So I'll let that set for just a moment. Now, the ways you can change colors. Now, of course, you have our primaries and then our green and our reddish brown and our gray. But we can modify those colors. So we can warm a color, warming a color. So for example, if I had this red, it's quite cool, really. Doesn't look like a campfire red. So I could warm that up. I could warm that up with a yellow. So if I had this yellow here, just so you can see them separately. And if I bring that in, you can see that makes a warmer, kind of almost an orangish. And I could also do the same idea if I wanted to warm it with this beautiful warm brown, this burnt sienna. So here's that. And then I pull it in here and that warms the color. So you can also cool colors. The same idea. So if I were going to take like this green, this is very much like a kind of almost like a camouflage, very warm green. And I could warm that up with this yellow if I want. And pull that over there. So then you can kind of see that that's, I'm sorry, cooling it. So that's cooling it down. So we kind of went from a, like a camouflage, very warm green to more of a lime green, like you'd have on a lime. And I could do that also with whatever else I wanted to. Let's say if I have this very warm burnt sienna. It's a very warm brown. And I could cool that down with this. Well, no, that would kind of turn it gray. What do I have here? No, let me see. Sorry. With this same idea. Now I got a little bit green, didn't I? So once you start painting a bit, you can get your colors mixed up. Like I've got a little bit of green in my yellow. And often I will put a lot more yellow in my palette than other colors because it is more likely to run out sooner because you'll get it dirty and you want to clean it up, sort of like this. Okay, and then we can do what we call neutralizing a color or muting it. And you're going to want to do this a lot if you're doing nature subjects. You don't want to have things too bright. So that would be adding its complement. So the complement to red is green. And so if I were to mix that a bit, if I were to mix some green into that red, it would be neutralized. So that would be a more natural looking red. So like if you were going to paint a berry out in the field, there's lots of red berries. You might want to make it look a bit more natural with adding some green. Now I want to go back up here to this wet and dry idea. So we put this cool red down already and it's all dry. So if I were to go in with this same blue as before, and especially if I do that kind of like a dry brush technique where I little bit dry my brush here so there's just pigment, then I can do some little patterns. Little patterns could be whiskers or grass or feathers. You see how nice and individual that is. It doesn't bleed like the wet and wet. So this is called wet in dry. All right. Now let's modify our colors a bit more. So we could make some various greens, purples, and browns and darks. Oh yes, and oranges. So we do already have a green on our palette, but like we shared earlier, you can modify that green. So this is your basic green we had. Now, a lot of times when I'm in the field, I will just modify things right on here because I won't have a mixing palette. So if I want a cooler, more lime green, I could add some yellow. Or I could add some red because, of course, green is made with yellow and blue. So those are going to be different greens, right? This is going to be a warmer green. This is going to be a cooler green. Now let's make some purples. So we don't have a purple already on our palette. We're going to need to make one. And so you make a purple. And again, that blue is very strong. So I can blend these together, my blue. And we could make different kinds of purples as well. We could even try making a purple. Oops, that's a little too dry. We could try making a purple with our gray because this is a very bluish gray. And that's another reason I put this in the palette. So see, that's a much cooler purple. Now, browns are a mixture of all three primaries, all three of these. And so there's a few ways we could make some browns. Again, I'm just mixing right here on my palette. Right here on my painting paper. And this is how I would usually do it in the field too. Very strong, that blue. So that's a brownish. We can also make a brown with this beautiful warm brown, which has a lot of yellow in it. And then we could cool it down. So that's still basically mixing all three primaries because green has a yellow and blue in it. And then this reddish, warm reddish color. So that's a brown. Now, if we want to make some darks, we've got a gray, beautiful gray. And we can add these other colors, these other darker colors. And we could even add this. So a dark is just basically adding anything except yellow. So we can make a few of those kind of darks as well. And it will vary depending on what color you put down first. And that's a warmer dark. And then oranges. So orange would be yellow and red. And we could also make an orange with yellow and this warmish reddish brown. Okay, one more to really show you how we can actually make a few different scenes using this 6-color set. So let's say we wanted to make a night sky with mountains and stars. And we can just paint really small. So let me get this back here. So again, you don't need a lot of complicated materials. You don't need a lot of room. So I'm going to start with this Payne's Gray, and I'm just going to make a wash, and that's going to be what we call a graded wash, right? Remember, where I'm just adding clean water and I'm pulling this down. Okay, and that's going to be the night sky. Now, if you're in a hurry, you can always take another piece of paper and kind of go like this and dry it, because we don't want too much of a wet in wet technique. But we're going to add a few layers of mountains in the background. So I'm going to get a little bit thicker version of this, and I'm going to just kind of swoopy like this and see how wet it is. Probably was too wet because it's really blurring there. That's okay. And I'll just pull that down. And then you can dry it. And you can add another. And dry it. And the next one's going to be much darker. So, you know, if you've got a mountain range, a few different mountain ranges. So we've got a sky and several mountain ranges. And then if we want to add some stars, we can do something like this with the Unipasca. And I just like to add some stars or some planets or a constellation. Like how about the Big Dipper? Sort of like the Big Dipper. So that's that super quick. Now, what if we wanted to make a summer sky and a wildflower meadow? Super easy. So I'm going to take some blue and I'm going to try to make it very light. Oop, that's way too strong. And the nice thing about watercolors is you can really lift them. So I'm going to pull that down in a graded wash. So it looks like the sky is getting farther away. Okay. And then I'm going to add a green meadow, and I'm going to make it the opposite, where I'm going to turn this upside down, and I'm going to take sort of a meadowy color. That could just be my green. And I wanted to cool it down a little bit. That. And then I'm going to just clean my brush, and I'm going to make a graded wash that just kind of fades out here like that. And that's going to be my meadow. Now I want to let that dry a second. We'll come back to that. And let's do a sunset at the beach. Another one pretty easy. I'm going to take a yellow, and we're just going to wet some of this, and just kind of, and again, the amount of time you wait will relate to how much these blend together. Now that also, I want to wait a bit before I add the firmer line of the ocean. Okay, so one more. We're going to do a little forest and an autumn field. All righty. So we'll do a sky again. Maybe I won't get it so crazy. Maybe I'll make it a little bit of a cloudy sky with the gray. How's that? And I'll do a graded wash, pulling that down. And I'm going to let that dry a bit. So now actually, if I wanted to go back, I could firm up this front mountain so it's not fuzzy. And that'll really bring it closer. And then I could go to my meadow, feeling if it's dry. And I always can go like that. And maybe I want to add a few flowers. Let's add some blue flowers. And I'm just going to do pretty dry brush, so kind of dry it. And the flowers would be closer to us here, so they'd be bigger. And then if you could dry your brush off and just make tinier dots, lighter, tinier dots in the background. And maybe we want to have some red flowers as well. Same idea. We could have some bigger dots in front and then soften it and just do some littler dots in the back. I don't know if you can see that. Smaller, lighter dots in the back. Okay. And if we wanted to also, we could make maybe some stems or something. All right. Okay, going back to the sunset beach, we're going to add the water, and I'm going to make some blue water, but it really needs to soften a bit. And maybe grade out a bit in the background because the sun is setting. And then we could lighten it here. Okay, so that's a little bit of just a sunset. Now let's come back to the forest and the autumn field. So we could make some trees, conifer trees, like where I live. And again, I'm not even going to mix on here. I can just make some light trees in the background. So just some tree shapes and it's kind of like the mountain back here is that's just going to be the background. And then maybe another line of trees that's closer to us. And maybe I can make those a little bit warmer. And I do often just make a mess in my palette and mix in here if I have nothing else. And maybe dry it a bit there. And put some other trees. And see that tree is just too brown. But I can just warm it up. Just as long as you have a little bit drier brush that's more full with pigment in the next layer. And maybe we want some little bit of stems, trunks on those trees. Oops, I forgot to add the meadow. Now the meadow, that's a little bright, so I could add a little bit of this burnt sienna. This could be a little bit of an autumn meadow. And you see I messed up, but if I'm sort of careful, I can add that in here. And there's an autumn meadow. And if I want to add some autumn grasses, would dry my brush and just kind of make some swoopies. And those don't make them too perfect. Those could just be stems of nearby grasses. Maybe some of them are more yellow. Just make sure you're getting some strong pigment and you dry off your brush. And there might be even a little bit of green. A few green stems. Okay. All right, so there's just some super simple little landscapes that you can make with just these 6 colors. So I hope this quick demonstration took some of the fear and mystery out of watercolors and will inspire you to get out in the field with some in the near future. If you'd like to learn more about watercolors, I invite you to join my monthly membership. It's called the Nature Notebook Club, and inside there's a full set of resources on watercolors, as well as drawing and nature journaling in the field. So I invite you to check the link below to learn more about the program and see my many testimonials.